All right, everybody, welcome back. Live at Drew's house, another edition. Hope everybody is doing okay as we speed our way toward the 4th of July. Where did June go? All right. Hope everybody's doing well, though, staying healthy as we try to break out of this pandemic. We have a return guest on the show. He's been on several times now. One of our guests from like the beginning year for us. He's been on every year. James Sullivan joins us from the Newburyport Documentary Film Festival. Hello, James. How are you, sir?
Hi, Drew. How are you?
Good. It's been, I guess the last time we probably had you on was right around this time last year. Is that about right?
I don't think we were on last year. I think it was probably the year before. Last year was up in the air for everybody, obviously, right? We did, I don't believe that we came on to talk about the festival last year, but we did do one. It was just virtual only.
I thought we did do a virtual talk one because this all rings a bell to me. You don't recall being in my kitchen before?
I mean, no, I don't actually. Maybe you talked to Joanne. I don't know. Maybe you talked to our director.
It could be. Maybe it was just Joanne who came.
I think I would have remembered if we were being in your kitchen, not in the studio. Yeah.
Well, yes, that's it is a pretty. Yeah, I guess it's more distinctive than the studio, I guess. But how nice is it to be going towards a real back to normal?
Yeah.
Film festival. I'm assuming most of it's back to normal. You tell me. What's the deal with it this year?
Yeah, we are kind of still, so as with a lot of cultural events, as horrible as last year was in so many ways, we learned, by necessity to produce a virtual event. And there were things about it that we really liked. And I think that the cultural sector really likes about making stuff available virtually. Top of mind being that people from outside the Newburyport area can enjoy our festival, obviously, if they can stream a film through us that they might not otherwise be able to see elsewhere, or if they want to support us. So we are going to do sort of a hybrid in September for our festival. We are definitely having films in person. We are kind of waiting on the Firehouse Center for the Arts to decide that they're planning on reopening in some form around September. So we're kind of waiting on them for our big events. Our bigger events typically happen there when we can do them in person. But the screening room is already open, which is our other partner venue, the smaller one in Newburyport. And they just reopened a week ago. So they're ready to roll. And we are ready to, run out an in-person version of the festival, but we're also going to create some kind of online platform for the same films for people who either don't want to come sit, still are uncomfortable sitting in a movie theater, or are outside the area but want to support the film festival or are interested in what we're doing.
Gotcha. Very cool. Hybrid. That is one of those terms that we're really picking up on in the pandemic, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that it's there were some silver linings to the pandemic, and that's one of them. Learning how to present cultural events to online to people who might not otherwise show up in person to see them. So
very cool. What's the my guest earlier this week here before somebody I think that you guys are maybe going to be partnering with a little bit, the screening room in Newburyport.
Yeah.
They came on. We're talking about one of the things that came up actually, and you just mentioned the Firehouse, which made me think of it. Theaters, it just in so many ways they're like the last thing to come back through all this,
right.
Which makes it very difficult. I know on them, but I'm sure in the case of like a screening room, you're thrilled to be able to kind of partner up with them and let's try to get back on our feet together, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so if you had them in earlier this week, they're great. Ben and Becca just moved here from Woodstock, New York, to kind of rescue the screening room, which was on the way out the door. Andrew, the guy who owned the screening room and founded it 30 or 40 years ago, was definitely ready to retire. And then when COVID hit, he was absolutely ready to retire. And we thought it was going to go away, and the whole community, I think, thought that the screening room was probably going to go away. And then Ben and Becca sort of swooped in out of nowhere and took it over. And they're great film people. They have great background in film festivals and other theaters around the Woodstock area. And we're lucky to have them. So we've been closely partnering with them so far this year. And we're excited to have them reopen their doors and show some of our films and their own films. I mean, screening room is a great part of the community.
Yeah, they were as sweet as can be, and I'm glad you guys are having a good working relationship. It seems that everybody I talk to, maybe I don't know how everybody gets out at kind of their different pace and they're ready to do things at their own pace, which is all well and good. But it seems like there's a level of people not taking things for granted anymore. Have you noticed that in your own life around town, that sort of thing?
No question. Yeah, no question. I mean, whether it's live shows or movies or whatever, people are pretty much thrilled to go be able to do them again, as long as they're comfortable doing them. But I think that, we're seeing, less and less masks around. We're pretty well vaccinated around here. Yeah. And I mean, people are pretty eager to take part in cultural experiences again. And we're happy to provide some of them.
It just hit me, by the way. You're not going crazy. I had Joanne on with a filmmaker who from Newburyport, who had made an unbelievable film, and we talked all about, and it was not you. I apologize. You were not on, you have not.
No, like I said, Drew, I would have remembered if I was in your kitchen. Yeah, I'm sure it was Joanne. Not surprised. But anyway, no problem.
It is too funny. I do a lot of these things in my defense.
I get it. I get it.
That's the first time that's happened, though, where I've actually thought that somebody's been here before who hasn't. So that just made me, and I'm ready to get back into a studio. We might have come full circle here.
Right. Exactly.
So what's for you, what is the most exciting part about, besides the changes? You like the idea of the hybrid thing and all that. Well, actually, let's go back a little bit, because what was so thrilling for you last year to kind of make that happen in such a tough time when the world had stopped? Like, it must have been pretty cool to find a new way to put a show on.
It was. I mean, it was a lot of work. We're all volunteers. I'm a journalist and a writer. I taught at Emerson College this past year, taught journalism. We squeeze in, we all have various careers, but we all love documentary film and we all love putting this festival on. It's become kind of a staple in the community. We've been around for 17 years now. There's plenty of film festivals, but not all that many that are specifically about documentary films. There are film festivals that have both features and documentaries. There are obviously film festivals that are just about feature films. We solely focus on documentaries, and I personally love them because I'm a journalist, and I feel like they are another form of journalism. Whether they're short films or feature films, they're longer forms of journalism and different, and handling in a different way than I would as a newspaper and magazine writer. But I've always loved them, and I love seeing what's out there every year, or hopefully helping to curate a lineup of really great ones. And I think the caliber of films that we've been getting over the last several years has gone up every year. And this year is no exception. We're seeing some really great films that we're excited to show. This upcoming event that I'm sitting with you about right now, we are doing sort of like a test run to come, dip our toes back into the live in-person waters with something on July 8th at the screening room. And we're sort of using it as an opportunity to kind of test the idea that we can do a live event again, but also make it available for a window of 3 days or so to those who are either out of the area or, still unwilling to show up and sit down in a movie theater next to a stranger. So we're excited to show that film and take it from there for the festival in September.
What are like the behind the scenes talks? Do you guys have those doubts within yourself? Like, will people show up like they did before? Is it just too soon? Like, what are those talks behind the scenes like?
Well, virtually we did pretty well last year, which we were pretty ecstatic about. It was entirely different than anything we'd ever experienced, but we did pretty well. Our numbers were good. And we did have this sort of fun burst of energy from people watching our films from, other parts of the country and from California. And, we had a film about an artist from Australia. So we had people from Australia watching, and we had people in Europe watching, which is amazing. I mean, obviously, a film, we get submissions every year from filmmakers around the world who would like to show their film in a documentary film festival. But, how often, unless the filmmaker themselves shows up in Newburyport to promote their film, we're not getting viewers from around the globe like that, and we did last year. So that was kind of a shot in the arm. That I guess pun intended, right? A shot in the arm. It was a little bit of a vaccination for us. When we had kind of at first entered the festival season, kind of bummed out that we weren't going to be able to do one in person, but there were, as I said, silver linings, and that was mostly about the audience that we're able to draw from outside of our area, and helping boost our name recognition as a festival a little more through that.
Again, James Sullivan joining us, Newburyport Documentary Film Festival. They'll be back into the screening room on the 8th for a little test run here before the big show here in the coming months. I wonder, you talked a little bit about the journalism aspect. We've talked about this before, past times you've been on, and how the documentary thing, they've just been taken to a new level year after year, especially if you look back a decade ago. And it's like, there was great work done there too, but it just seems like if you want to find a documentary that is powerful on like any subject, you can go find something that's good these days. I know during the pandemic, my wife and I did a lot of like the climate change stories, and there's like a million of them. There's great work being done by so many different people, and it's not necessarily like, it doesn't have to be like a big team of people, like this massive production. There's some people that are going out there into tough spots and doing some, like you say, great journalism. Sometimes I think that surprises people. Sometimes it's not always the big and mighty and the powerful that are producing these great documentaries.
No question. So the technology has obviously gotten to the point where you can print. Not everyone does still, but you can certainly shoot an entire documentary on your iPhone, and the quality is good enough that if you personally are a good editor, you can make a really good film just with an iPhone at this point. And so the technology has become more democratic. You don't need, like you said, a whole cinematographer and people with 100-pound cameras and a whole photo crew to make it happen. You can definitely do it by the seat of your pants. And it's been basically an explosion. As a journalist, I'm kind of averse to the idea of like everything's an explosion. Every trend is an explosion. But honestly, it has been kind of an explosion of great documentary filmmaking over the last 10 or 20 years. Partly, in large part because of that technology becoming available to everyday people. There, like you said, there's documentaries on any subject you can possibly think of. Just recently, a couple weeks ago, was the anniversary of the Tulsa riots, right? Which people were saying, wow, how come that was never taught in schools, and how come we never really heard about it? And there were 4 or 5 documentaries that came out because it was the 100th anniversary of the event on various platforms on TV, and they were all really good. So whatever this, and we show films in our festival that are not heavy hitting like that. They're not about climate change. They're not about huge social issues or we show films about social activism, but we also show films that are just about, quirky little slices of life that are just as entertaining, if not more. Well, they're meant to be entertaining, right? So, I just think of it like I think of journalism as, it's really about everything under the sun, and if you as a writer or a filmmaker are interested in something, you can kind of bet on the fact that there's somebody else out there who's interested in seeing it. Or, when I'm writing a story, I figure if I'm interested in it and I want to see the story written, there's readers out there who are going to say, I'm interested in that too. I'm curious to see what you found out when you were reporting that. Same goes for documentary filmmaking. If you have an iPhone and an idea, you can make a good documentary film.
What's the, I always have to kind of ask this question carefully with you and kind of skirt around a little bit, because I know you can't pick favorites necessarily and you have to be careful with what you say, but what are the documentaries that have kind of caught your eye, turned your head a little bit, depending on how you can answer that. It can be recent years or whatever, but when I ask that question, what's the one that comes to your mind right off the bat?
Well, we haven't, so for this coming festival, we're kind of right now in the selection phase where we've had an open submission period from filmmakers all spring, and that just closed a few days ago, actually. So we actually just met those of us who helped choose the films. I'm the program director, but we have a team of viewers, including Joanna, our executive director, and Ben and Becca actually are helping us this year from the screening room, because they have a really good eye for films. Obviously, they know what they're talking about. So we have a team of people who watch the films that get submitted by directors, and then we decide which ones we would most like to promote and show in our festival, and which ones work best in the mix that we're trying to present. Like I said, some heavier, some lighter, a nice mix, some short films, some feature films. So I can't really talk about what we have coming up this year yet, because we haven't informed any of the filmmakers whether or not we've accepted their film for our festival in September. That's coming right up, but we haven't quite come to those determinations yet. There's stuff every year that we love. Can I talk about the film that we're showing on the 8th? Because I love this film.
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah, so we're showing one time only a film called Vinyl Nation, which is a feature film made by two guys from the West Coast that is about the idea that vinyl records have made this, had this renaissance in the last decade or so. So as you can see in my office space in my attic, I have a turntable right behind me. I have another turntable in the living room. I am a vinyl junkie. I used to be a music critic for the San Francisco Chronicle. I spent a few years as an editor for Rolling Stone, so I'm a big music guy, big music junkie. So when I first heard about this film, Vinyl Nation, my first reaction was a little bit of skepticism, because it's not brand new news anymore that people are into vinyl records again. I mean, that kind of started happening 10 years ago. And to me, that alone is not necessarily up to the moment breaking news story. However, these two guys, Kevin and Chris, the filmmakers, one's from San Francisco, one's from Albuquerque, did a fantastic job with this film. They made it really fun. It's not boilerplate, like, oh, let's look at some numbers and, let's talk to a couple of 18-year-olds that are spending $30 on Led Zeppelin albums or whatever. Although there is that in there, because that's part of the story. They found a very wide cross-section of people who are devoted to vinyl records for various reasons and with various styles of music. So I always think that when I go to a record store, or when I'm talking about records with friends, they're nerds like me who are of a certain age, who have a collector's mentality, kind of not unlike the comic book guy on The Simpsons, which is not all that appealing to the average person. But if someone sits down to watch Vinyl Nation, they'll find a very vibrant collection of people who share this one thing in common. They love vinyl records. They might listen to all different styles of music. They live in all different parts of the country. They come from all kinds of different backgrounds. These guys did a great job of telling that story. It's a really lively film. And so I'm thrilled to show it, because I am a vinyl guy. I've owned, records my whole life. And when we were all given permission to start ignoring the CDs that we had amassed over the previous 15 years or so, and go back to listening on vinyl, I mean, for me now at this point, it's either streaming like Spotify, because it's so painfully easy that it's hard to ignore, or the great physical experience of putting an album on and listening to it that way. It's kind of all or nothing, like the simple digital side or the amazing tactile analog side. And I don't really want the CDs anymore. I mean, I've got a couple thousand of them, and I hardly ever play them anymore, because there's nothing fulfilling about that. There's nothing romantic about a CD, whereas there is when you pull out an album and you put it on the turntable.
I'm with you. I do. It's either the streaming or the record player for me too. And if you say CD, you're at the point where, like, if you say CD to a high school kid, they borderline know what you're talking about.
No, they don't. I mean, I have high school and college age kids, and they don't own any physical music. I have one son who.
Have you tried the Walkman on them? Tried that one?
Yeah, my one son who has a few albums, dabbles a little bit in exploring the old technologies, but for the most part, none of them care. I mean, they just want to hear it. They don't care about owning it or holding it. But I do, because I grew up with that. And there are plenty of people their age who are, like I said earlier, a lot of people their age are the ones who are keeping those, sort of $35 Led Zeppelin albums in circulation.
So I'm 34. I got to tell you, and maybe I'm kind of prime for that vinyl explosion age, the term that we hate. But it feels like every one of my buddies' houses I go into, almost all of them have a record player now. It's like it's not that kind of nerdy click thing of he's always been the funky one. No, it's not that. It's like people genuinely like this stuff, and there's a lot of reasons why. I think I've always loved the idea of just holding a record. I mean, you get the artwork with it. You get the feel of that. I mean, it does. I don't know if you agree with this. I mean, I think you probably do. It sounds different. It has.
Oh, it definitely sounds different. So there are audiophiles who swear that, it's a warmer sound. Music, if they're played through decent speakers, music to me is good music. I'm not all that concerned. I mean, I love the sound of the needle drop. I really do love that.
Yeah, me too.
But once the music's coming out of the speakers, I hear it. I hear the difference. But if I pop in a CD, that's fine with me too. I just want to hear the music. But audio, there are plenty of audiophiles who will tell you that they refuse to listen to digital. Neil Young, famously hates digital music, thinks it's the devil incarnated, so, but to go back to what you were saying about every house sort of having a turntable now, I mean, I think for a while when we all started getting iPods and music on our phones and all that, people started saying, well, what do I need all this whole stack of, stereo equipment for? I don't need it anymore. People had, their Bose, disc players for a while, and then they went to their Sonos systems, and people got rid of those stacked, your receiver and tape deck and all that stuff with a turntable on top, none of which you felt like you needed anymore. I have Sonos running throughout the house, in our house, and the Sonos 5 there's one model of Sonos that you can jack your turntable right into. So I have that set up. I have a turntable in my living room that doesn't need its own speakers, doesn't need an amplifier or a receiver. It just plugs through the Sonos system, and I can play it on there, just like you can play anything else on the Sonos system. So, it's it's like a cross between convenience and the old-fashioned way of doing things. It's amazing, what you can do. And so, I agree. I think that there's probably plenty of folks your age and my age who, just enjoy the occasional fun of putting a record on and having I think a lot of folks your age probably have they definitely have smaller collections than I do because I've had more years to amass them. But, you have your certain select albums that you love, and it's kind of an event every time you put one of them on. Whereas, when you call up something on Spotify, it's not an event. It's just music.
Yeah, I was walking by the thing the other day, and I had at some point over the last month or two, the Springsteen 75-85 record that I have, which was that famous live album. Just kind of, I hadn't listened to it. It had been a long time since I listened to it, but I just walked by it, and that picture of the stadium and the crowd in the back, it just caught my eye, and I just started playing it, and I was like, damn, I forgot how good that was.
Sure. Yeah.
That's something that would never happen with a phone in your pocket.
No, exactly. Right. Or you look at the cover and it's about as big as your thumb, thumbnail. It's not appealing.
Exactly. What are the nuts and bolts? So if people want to get involved for this on the 8th of July, so we're going to pass the holiday, and here's a good little something to look forward to. How do people get involved with it?
Right. So we just put the tickets on sale on our website. So that's NewburyportDocuFest.com or .org rather. NBPT docufest.org. I mean, just search for Newburyport DocuFest is probably the easiest way to take care of that. But so the tickets are available to purchase online at our website. And then on the day of the show, you can purchase, if there are still tickets left at the screening room, you can walk up in person at showtime, but you might want to check with us or them beforehand, because we may very well sell out. I mean, we're hoping to. The screening room holds at 99 people. But the other option that we have is that we have worked out an arrangement with the directors to stream the film virtually through that weekend. So the film is showing at the screening room on a Thursday night. July 8th is a Thursday. but we'll make it available for 3 days through Sunday to stream through our website. If someone can't make it in person on Thursday night but is interested, or if someone doesn't want to be in a movie theater, with people on either side of them, then you can stream it through our website. And again, that's NewburyportDocuFest.org.
I don't know if you probably did. You talked, Rebecca Fundus and Ben Fundus were telling me that they had a huge crowd come out, and they were almost shocked the other day. And on Monday, they actually took a picture of it because they were just so thrilled and overjoyed to see people so eager to get back into a movie theater. So I know that's a promising sign for the industry, right?
Yeah, so they've had good crowds, not full yet, but they didn't expect to be full right off the bat. People are sort of tiptoeing back. But they've had good crowds. They are obviously showing In the Heights, which is the Lin-Manuel Miranda movie, which I know they're thrilled to have it right now because it's in first run and bigger in the big chains right now. But Ben said to me last night that if we are able to sell out our screening of Vinyl Nation on the 8th, he's going to cry. So I said we'd have to bring him up to the front of the room so that people could see the tear rolling down his cheek if we have a full room.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing. Real quick, I do want to ask, I just want to finish up because I know, and by the way, you can go to the website too to see as we get closer to the fall, for those of you who want to, maybe it piqued your interest about the Newburyport Documentary Film Festival, that look there for updates. You guys do a good job on updating people on certain dates and the big dates and all that sort of stuff. So go there as well. Wondering, we kind of dipped in real quickly on like the idea of, different ways of shooting, whether it be your iPhone or whatever. Is there any film that like past few years that there's just been a real unique way of going about it, something that even you hadn't thought about and said that was creative?
Oh yeah, we get that all the time. So I will mention, again, I said this earlier, I shouldn't be talking about films that we haven't informed yet, but we were all blown away by this one film that we got, this just a little short film that we're more than likely to show in the fall. It's a short film. It's basically what the idea was the concept of Rosie the Riveter, the women who went to work in the factories during World War II because the men were overseas fighting. So the filmmakers, I think they're from Brooklyn, they decided that they wanted to talk to a few real life Rosie the Riveters, a few women who are still around today who would tell them some stories about what it was like to be one of those Rosies, being like a young woman working in the factories. So they did some interviews, got those interviews on tape. But then what they did was they animated the interviews with this little animated art form that I had never seen before. They used corrugated cardboard and cut out little people and little settings. And it was like a school project, but they animated it, so it was like stop motion animation. And it sounds, corrugated cardboard doesn't sound like something that's going to make an especially compelling little tableau. But just believe me when I tell you, we were all blown away by how cool and creative it was. It's just really neat. Like, so there's all these factory scenes with like, gears turning and, all kind of made out of cut out of cardboard to tell the story in animation of these women who were Rosie the Riveters. So people do stuff like that. But we get a lot of stuff that sort of includes animation. A lot of documentary filmmakers use reenactment. So they're trying to tell a story where there's not a lot of historical footage of a past event. So they use contemporary reenactment to make some of that works better than, sometimes that works really well, sometimes it works less well. But this was an example of one film that we just saw recently that really kind of blew us away with the creativity of the artwork to tell this little story.
That's cool. I'll stop trying to get you in trouble here and talking about the movies. I know you're not supposed to. And lastly, you're a music guy. You're probably like me. You're excited to get out and see a live show at some point, I'm sure. It's something been missing in our lives.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I still write about live music for the Globe a lot. I mostly do feature stories ahead of a concert date, talking to the artist about coming to town and what they're up to and that kind of stuff. But, things are slowly but surely opening up. I just did a story recently about the festival scene pretty much back on track. I mean, Newport Folk Festival is going to look different this year. Boston Calling had to pull the plug because they would have had to confirm everybody several months ago when things were still way up in the air. But the clubs are starting to come back. The Lowell Summer Music Series, I just wrote about them, is they're coming back. There's a couple of really good things coming there. I'm looking forward to going over there and maybe seeing Los Lobos, for instance. So yeah, I can't wait to see live music and have it ringing in my ears again.
Yeah, there's a bunch of great festivals around here. Who's your favorite music interview of all time?
Interview?
Yeah.
Can I say a Beatle? Sat down with Paul McCartney about 20 years ago when he was getting ready to tour the U.S. for the first time in about 10 years.
I don't think we talked about that. You sat down with Sir Paul.
Sir Paul in his pajama bottoms. Yeah.
No kidding.
I was in San Francisco at the time. The tour was opening in San Jose, which is right next door to San Francisco. So we had the privilege of sort of getting the first daily newspaper interview with him. They sent me to LA where he was rehearsing with his band in an airplane hangar. So literally there were about 6 people in the building in an airplane hangar, and I was one of them. The band, the publicist, and me. And when they took a break, I went and sat in Paul's trailer while he was having his vegan lunch, and he was wearing pajama bottoms. So it was pretty memorable. And
casual.
Yeah. And I mean, I had long since gotten over the idea of being nervous when I interviewed celebrity, big name people, because they have conversations just like you and I do. But I mean, let me tell you, sitting in a room and the only other person in it is Sir Paul McCartney, I was a little tongue-tied.
I can imagine. I've heard monster musicians that have met him for the first time that have had that same feeling.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
It was a privilege for sure. Yeah.
Well, it's good to know you didn't get yourself all worked up about this interview. That's good. You didn't feel the nerves. I got you.
Little nerves, Drew. I got over it.
Very good. Well, I like that. Let's end with the Sir Paul story. Well, will you tell me who the worst one was? Oh God.
I mean, there are always interviews where the person on the other end of the line is, it's usually that they would rather be doing something else than dealing with the obligation of talking to a journalist. So it's nobody's fault, they're just kind of cranky. That's all I'll say about that.
I'm being forced to be here. Usually my rule is my dogs tell me when it's time to go. I think
my dogs just told us. Yeah.
That's the howling from the other room means I've kept you too long. James Sullivan, thanks for joining us. Have a great show on the 8th over there at the screening room. What a great concept and a great story. I love your record player right behind you there. That's fantastic. Drop the needle. But have a great night. We'll talk to you as we get closer to the Documentary Film Festival in its entirety come the fall. And it's always great catching up with you, man. And enjoyed it. Hope you did too.
That's great. Yeah, totally appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, James.
All right.
All right, there you have it. James Sullivan of the Newburyport Documentary Film Festival. Good guy. Good to always be on the show. He's been here year after year. Although not that last time, I forgot. Joanne Morris we had on. Who leads the Newburyport Documentary Film Fest, of course. And it's funny. I always picture Joanne and James next to each other. And we did a show with Joanne that did not include James. It's funny. It slipped my memory. So James was in my kitchen for the first time. Pleasure as always. James Sullivan of the Newburyport Documentary Film Festival. Screening room, July 8th. Go check it out. Great event there. I might try to check that out myself. Have a great day, everybody. Live at Drew's house, another edition. Be well. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.